Let's talk about something most people do, but few discuss openly: self-pleasure. It's one of the most natural aspects of human sexuality, yet it remains wrapped in silence, misconceptions, and sometimes unnecessary shame. Well, I'm Dr. Naraya Wolf, urologist and pelvic surgeon, and if you ever face questions or concerns about your sexual health or urological well-being, stay with us. We're here to help you understand your body with clarity, compassion, and honest medical guidance. Today, we're going to explore what the research actually tells us about masturbation, who's doing it, how often, and what shapes our attitudes toward this perfectly normal behavior. If you're new here, I create content about sexual health, bladder wellness, and helping people understand their bodies better. I release videos twice weekly, so please subscribe and share this channel with anyone who might benefit from straightforward, shame-free health education. The reality behind the numbers. You've probably heard the old saying, 95% of people masturbate and the other 5% are lying. But what does the actual data show? Self-pleasure is accessible, safe, and costs nothing. For many people, it represents a foundational way to understand their own bodies and experience pleasure without pressure or performance anxiety. But the question remains, how common is it really? Let me walk you through what research has revealed. In 2010, researchers conducted a comprehensive survey involving about 1,500 individuals through the National Survey of Sexual Health and Behavior. They wanted to understand sexual practices across different age groups, and what they discovered paints an interesting picture. Men's patterns across the lifespan. Among men ranging from age 14 to 94, masturbation appeared consistently across all age brackets. When researchers asked about lifetime engagement, meaning had they ever masturbated in their life, the rates ranged from 67% to 94%, depending on which age group they belonged to. When narrowing the time frame to just the past month, those numbers dropped to approximately 43% to 69%. For men over 70, the rate decreased further to about 28%. Interestingly, solo masturbation, as opposed to mutual masturbation with a partner, was most common among two distinct groups: teenagers aged 14-15 and adults over 50. This makes sense when you consider life circumstances. Younger teens are often exploring their sexuality before partnered experiences, while older adults may be navigating changes in relationships or physical health. Women's different landscape. For women, the lifetime engagement rates were somewhat lower, ranging from 43% to 85%. Within the past month, rates fell between 21% and 50%, with women over 70 reporting rates around 11.5%. So clearly, at least according to 2010 data, women were engaging in self-pleasure less frequently than men, though the gap isn't as dramatic as cultural stereotypes might suggest. Generational shifts. The research team revisited this same survey in 2018, and they found something unexpected. While adults aged 18-49 maintained essentially the same masturbation rates between 2009 and 2018, younger individuals aged 14 and 17 showed a notable decline from about 56% in 2009 down to 40% in 2018. Why might this be? One theory suggests that smartphones, social media, and constant digital engagement occupy the mental space that boredom used to fill. When your attention is constantly captured by devices and endless content streams, there's simply less idle time to explore your own body. Cultural context matters for older adults. When examining older populations, cultural environment plays a significant role. Studies from European countries reveal that men in more liberal societies, particularly Nordic countries, tend to report higher rates of masturbation compared to more conservative Southern European regions. Additionally, older adults with higher education levels and exposure to comprehensive sexual education tend to engage in self-pleasure more frequently. This likely stems from reduced fear and fewer misconceptions about whether masturbation might somehow harm them. Education matters. When people understand that solo pleasure is medically safe and psychologically normal, shame decreases and comfort with their own sexuality increases. Why self-pleasure matters for well-being. If you missed my previous discussion on masturbation benefits, Let me briefly revisit why this matters from a health perspective. Regular self-pleasure has been associated with improved sleep quality, enhanced mood, and increased overall happiness. These aren't just anecdotal reports. They're patterns documented across multiple research studies. When you experience orgasm, your body releases a cascade of feel-good neurochemicals including dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These compounds naturally elevate mood and promote relaxation, which is why many people report sleeping better after masturbating. Attitudes shape behavior. Another fascinating study examined about 3,000 European adults between ages 40 and 79, exploring what factors correlated with higher masturbation frequency. Researchers asked detailed questions about attitudes towards sex and masturbation, including, did they believe sex required romantic love to be meaningful? Did they feel society stigmatized sexuality excessively? How comfortable were they discussing sex openly? They also tracked actual behavior, frequency of masturbation, as well as frequency of partnered sexual activity, including oral, anal, and vaginal intercourse. Surprising findings about relationships. Here's what might surprise you. In this age group, women masturbated less frequently than men, consistent with American data. But interestingly, adults who were currently in relationships were more likely to masturbate than those who weren't. This challenges the stereotype that masturbation serves primarily as a substitute for partnered sex. Instead, for many people, solo pleasure complements rather than replaces intimacy with a partner. Additionally, individuals who reported higher satisfaction with their partnered sex life were less likely to engage in frequent masturbation. This suggests that for some, self-pleasure may indeed fill gaps when partnered satisfaction is lower. The power of mindset. Attitudes proved powerfully predictive. People who believed that sexuality naturally declines with age or who felt society already had too much sex were significantly less likely to masturbate. Conversely, those who viewed sexual activity as beneficial for older adults were much more likely to engage in self-pleasure. The takeaway? Your beliefs about sexuality profoundly influence your actual sexual behavior, especially as you age. When you internalize negative messages about aging and desire, your body often follows suit. Global perspectives. In 2018, Tenga, a sexual wellness company, surveyed approximately 13,000 adults worldwide. Their findings showed that roughly 78% of people globally engage in masturbation. Among men, rates ranged from 92% to 98%, depending on country of origin. Among women, rates fell between 76% and 78%. So while not quite 95%, the majority of adults do engage in self-pleasure at some point in their lives. How often are people actually doing it? Looking back at that 2010 US study, about 25% of respondents masturbated 2 to 3 times per month. Roughly 20% engaged 2 to 3 times per week. Less than 20% reported masturbating 4 or more times weekly, so it varies tremendously. Most women in the study masturbated once weekly or less. However, the Tenga data from 2021 revealed that among people aged 18-24, approximately 57% masturbated weekly, the highest frequency of any age group. Whether this reflects relationship status or simply higher sex drive during young adulthood remains unclear. When does it begin? For parents wondering when this becomes relevant, the average age people begin masturbating falls around 15 years old. This varies somewhat by country and culture, but mid-adolescence represents the typical starting point. Different motivations by gender. Here's where gender differences become particularly interesting. Research suggests that women tend to use masturbation as a complement to their sex lives, meaning they're more likely to masturbate when feeling sexually satisfied and happy overall. Men, on the other hand, often use self-pleasure as compensation, meaning they're more likely to engage when they're not in a sexually satisfying relationship. Now, before anyone panics about their partner's habits, let me be clear. This represents a statistical trend, not an absolute rule. If your partner masturbates and you're in a relationship together, it doesn't automatically mean dissatisfaction. People masturbate for countless reasons: stress relief, physical release, exploration, simple pleasure, or just because it feels good in that moment. Not a replacement for partnership, self-pleasure isn't a substitute for genuine sexual connection with another person. For most people, it serves as a complement to whatever partnered sexual activity they're engaged in, or it fills space when partnered activity isn't available or desired. Importantly, there's nothing inherently wrong with your partner masturbating. They're providing themselves with sexual pleasure and release, which is fundamentally healthy unless it begins interfering with daily functioning or relationship quality. If your partner consistently chooses masturbation over spending time with you, or if their behavior starts disrupting work, social connections, or relationship intimacy, then yes, that warrants conversation and possibly professional support. But occasional or even regular self-pleasure, that's completely normal and healthy. You might even consider joining them, making it a shared experience that builds intimacy rather than something hidden in isolation. Who's talking about it? Despite masturbation's prevalence, very few people discuss it openly. In that 2018 Tenga study, only 11 to 18% of respondents felt it was important to talk about masturbation, a remarkably small proportion considering how common the behavior actually is. Even more telling, 30% of people admitted to lying about their masturbation habits. This speaks to the persistent shame and secrecy surrounding what is, medically speaking, one of the safest and most accessible forms of sexual expression. Cultural variations and attitudes. When examining attitudes across countries, more people generally believe masturbation is beneficial rather than harmful. However, this varies significantly by culture. Interestingly, India, where my own family originates and many of you ask about, showed higher percentages of people viewing masturbation negatively, with about 14% in this particular survey considering it harmful. This reflects deeper cultural and sometimes religious beliefs about sexuality, body autonomy, and what constitutes appropriate sexual behavior. When is it actually a problem? Let me state this clearly one more time. Masturbation is not harmful unless it's creating problems in your life. How do you know if it's become problematic? Ask yourself these questions. Do you consistently choose masturbation over other important activities? Does it interfere with work, school, or personal responsibilities? Do you find yourself spending entire days focused on self-pleasure rather than engaging in normal daily activities? Has it damaged relationships with family, friends, or romantic partners? Do you feel compulsive urges you can't control? If you answered yes to several of these, it may be worth speaking with a mental health professional who specializes in sexual health. Compulsive sexual behavior can sometimes indicate underlying anxiety, depression, or other conditions that benefit from professional support. But for the vast majority of people, masturbation remains a healthy, safe, and pleasurable aspect of normal human sexuality. The safety factor. From a purely medical standpoint, self-pleasure carries virtually no health risks. There's no possibility of pregnancy. There's no risk of sexually transmitted infections, unless you're sharing sex toys without proper cleaning, in which case thorough washing and sterilization between uses is essential. It allows you to explore what brings you pleasure without performance pressure, without needing to navigate another person's needs or expectations, and entirely on your own terms. Understanding your own body. One of masturbation's greatest values lies in self-discovery. When you understand what types of touch, pressure, rhythm, and fantasy work for your body, you become better equipped to communicate those preferences to a partner. Sexual satisfaction in partnered contexts often improves when both people understand their own pleasure patterns first. You can't effectively communicate what you don't yet know about yourself. Moving past shame. If you grew up in an environment where sexuality was shameful, hidden, or condemned, you might carry complicated feelings about self-pleasure. That's understandable and valid, but from a medical perspective, I want you to know, your body is yours. Exploring it, understanding it, and finding pleasure in it doesn't make you bad, dirty, or morally compromised. It makes you human. If guilt persistently interferes with your ability to enjoy your sexuality, whether solo or partnered, consider speaking with a sex therapist. These professionals specialize in helping people work through sexual shame and develop healthier relationships with their bodies and desires. We've covered a lot of ground today, from statistical realities to cultural attitudes to the basic physiology of why self-pleasure feels good and serves important functions. If there's one message I hope you take away, it's this. You're not alone in this experience, and you're not wrong for having sexual feelings or acting on them in safe, private ways. Most people masturbate. Most people have questions about whether they're normal. And most people carry at least some degree of unnecessary shame about something that is fundamentally natural. Your sexual health matters. Your comfort in your own body matters. And understanding the truth, rather than myths and misinformation, empowers you to make informed choices about your own well-being. If something about your sexual function concerns you, if you're experiencing pain, if you're struggling with compulsive behaviors, or if you simply have questions, please reach out to a healthcare provider who specializes in sexual medicine. We're here to help, not to judge. Thank you for spending this time with me today learning about your body. Share this video with anyone who might benefit from straightforward, shame-free information about sexual health. And as always, remember to take care of yourself because you're absolutely worth it.